favorite experience at Hut was the market because we went in and we had to get food for a baby because each group had like this fake baby that they had to take care of the whole time. And so Jenna points at the baby and points at the food so that he knows that she wants to trade, and he tried to give us like his vegetables for the child. And what I learned from it was that if you don't have high expectations, you're going to be more grateful overall because expectations can ruin your experiences. So yeah.
One of my favorite experiences at Hut was having to deal with the authorities, because we were able to see how unfair it is for a lot of the people in these countries, because even though they might work really hard to do the right thing and be honest people, the people that they have to deal with aren't necessarily honest, and they just have to take what they get, and they have to trust in God to provide for their needs and to give them people in their pathway that will treat them the way that they should be treated. What I learned other than that is that we have a wonderful youth group. We have very sincere youth and hardworking youth, and I'm very proud to be a part of the ministry.
Alright, so my favorite experience was honestly being able to experience the different cultures and just the way that they do things. And in the marketplace, there were different ways that they would barter back and forth for items, and do the best that they can to benefit the people, like their families and stuff like that, to provide for them. And also getting to play soccer with a potato with one of the street people that nobody really paid attention to, and that changed my perspective too and how I look at things. And I also learned that we have it really, really well off compared to all the different cultures that are around the world, and just being able to see all the different living situations and seeing how bad they are, and just seeing how much help that they really need. And it was good to learn about that and just put it into perspective, and also that it's important to learn about their culture so that we can build relationships with them and help them out in any way that we possibly can, and teach them about God and provide for them and help have them a better community and a place to live.
Okay, so my favorite experience was cooking over a fire, and what I learned is kids die a lot. Okay.
My favorite experience, I'd have to say, would be getting to have to hoe the ground after it's had about 3.5 months of time just to grow weeds and a snake. And something that I learned is that no matter what you think, the world will never be as good of a place. I mean, even if you try, there's always going to be slums.
My favorite experience was whenever we were around the campfire and singing about Christ and how great He is. And the thing I learned was that there are different levels of poverty in the world. Like, some people could say divided up from middle class poverty to low class, these bumps are annoying, and high class poverty.
Okay, so one of my favorite experiences was this morning. We sang we sang God is Good, but we sang it in 10 languages, and it was really cool just to experience that. And what I learned was that, so there was this place, and it was called Stinking Creek, and that's where I stayed. Well, sort of. I'll explain that later. But it made me realize that a lot of the time we think for missions we have to go out of the country, but you don't have to do that. There's people right here that need help. So yeah. I had fun.
Okay, so my favorite experience was when we were in the marketplace and I had a baby and Cassie got super protective, and so every time she would come around, she would like grab the water and she'd be like, get Michaela, like protect Michaela, and it was like, okay. And then she was so intense about it. And then like we're talking to the crazy girl Abigail later, and she's like, yeah, I wasn't gonna kill her. I wasn't gonna kill your baby. And we're like, okay, we wasted that effort of like trying to protect something for nothing. And then Larkin, this other lady, was like trying to count her money after they made all the sales, and Larkin goes up to her and she's like siete, ocho, and then she's like, you're Italian, not Spanish. And she got so embarrassed, and it was so funny. And then I learned that I'm very fortunate. A lot of times I think of like myself as being like middle class, but compared to the rest of the world, I'm like extremely rich. And it's like, yeah. And that truck stop bathrooms are not as bad as they could be. So that's what I learned.
Favorite experience? I would have to say eating boiled potatoes. Those were good. And what I learned how to cook something over an open fire.
It's recording.
Okay, so my favorite experience was probably getting to cook the food. And what I learned is don't have your finger where you had no idea where it is because you're going to cut it.
One thing I found interesting was how hard it was to be a refugee. To be any missionary anywhere in the world in a third world country, getting by and living is much harder than it seems. And just the simplest things, providing shelter for yourself off of nothing but rags, ropes, and some tent, except it's cut up. So that's one thing I found interesting. I guess one thing I learned was what it takes to be a refugee, or to be a missionary. So that's weird.
So what I learned was how to make bricks for a house and help other people, just to do it for teamwork. And what I thought was interesting was that I got to learn how to make bricks. So
what I learned from the retreat was that it's really hard to survive in a third world country as a missionary, and my best experience was building a tent out of random pipes and tarps that were on the ground and making a fire and cooking food over it.
Okay. What my favorite experience was on the trip was getting to go around the campfire and sing songs and eat s'mores. And what I learned was that we shouldn't take anything for granted because some places don't have it as good as we do at all. So yeah.
My favorite part was when we had to put on those little skirts, and Amber wore a skirt, and we put like these little cute headbands on to go eat, and they were like mashed potato things. It was pretty good. And then after, when we went around the campfire, we had like s'mores and stuff, and that was fun. It was all fun. Okay, it was just all fun. Yeah.
my favorite part was cooking dinner for my family in the refugee camp, and we were pretty much the lowest of the lows, so we didn't have very much money, but we were able to make do with what we had. And I got to experience what other people have to deal with, and it really opened my eyes. And what I learned was we had to talk to a lady she was a refugee, and so like she lost all of her family in Syria, and she had moved to a different country, and she was really depressed, and we had to invite her to church. And so we learned how to interact with people like that and how to make them feel comfortable and become friends with them so that they'll come to church with you. So yeah.
My favorite part about Hut Retreat 2015 was actually getting food and preparing it, and it only cost like less than $5 to have a dinner and feed 5 people. I think that was really neat, and I learned that we spend a lot more money on food in America than most other countries, and I just think that was really cool.
guess would have to be making the dinner. And I learned that I'm not very good with animals and gardens.